A jump shot heat map will tell you just how different today's game is, as will watching 2 minutes of any old game compared to an era where there is less physicality, more shooting, and just overall a little more showboating. While dunks are still very much a thing, today's game glorifies the three-point shot and leaves the old-school back-to-the-basket high-percentage shot of yesteryear far behind. Many players from the past have strong opinions on how soft or boring the NBA has become, but then again, it's just an opinion. Who's to say they're right? Let's hear what the old school has to say as we dive into NBA legends explaining why they hate today's NBA. Before we get into all that, if you want to win a PS5 with NBA 2K22 and Madden NFL 22 included, leave a like, comment, subscribe, and turn on notifications to enter the giveaway. So it depends who you're talking to. We know Charles Barkley always has big opinions on anything and everything today.
Listen, I'm telling you the truth. I think it's a great city. I think they got the best organization in the NBA, but they do have some big old women down there. I mean, come on now.
See what you do to him every time you go down.
I'm telling you, man.
The 6'6" power forward was an 11-time All-Star and nearly managed to topple the Chicago Bulls during their meteoric rise in the 1990s, but was defeated in 6 games in his only finals appearance in 1993. Barkley had just moved from a tough Philadelphia team to the Phoenix Suns, where he was named the NBA's most valuable player in his first season. Now firmly on the mic as a co-commentator with Shaq, he's always willing to bet on the wrong team, but brings the right energy when it comes to his judgment on today's game.
My Sixers guaranteed.
It got warm in here.
Aboard.
Recently, he spoke on how the NBA has progressed into a shooting league since the Golden State Warriors' influence over the last 5 years. Charles says he thinks the template taken from the Warriors' success is the wrong way to go because no team has the shooters they had during that period. He called on a quite incredible statistic with the fact that there's 7 teams shooting more threes than the Golden State Warriors in the last 2 years.
The notion that 6 other teams would shoot more threes than the 3 greatest shooters that ever lived, that's stupid.
He mentioned that big players take their size out of the game. It helps the defenders watching them shoot much lower percentage shots from the perimeter. His point is valid, especially when there aren't many great big players who can shoot in the NBA.
Let's be real, how many great big guys, jump shooters there are? Now, you have to, Kevin Durant and Dirk Nowitzki, those guys are an anomaly, but I'm talking about big guys. But I don't understand why you would take your physical advantage away.
Barkley was an undersized power forward who could rebound the ball ruthlessly. He played on his strengths and was in an era where most basketball players did the same, hence why he's always going to have a different point of view when it comes to the changes in today's NBA. Now we come to another power forward and a center, but in a different era and with more size. Kevin Garnett was an MVP for the Timberwolves in the mid-2000s and an NBA champion in 2008 with the Boston Celtics. A 15-time All-Star and with an NBA Defensive Player of the Year crown in his title-winning year, Garnett stood at a fierce 6'11". The one thing he and Charles have in common was that they were both 5th overall picks in the NBA draft, although Garnett's career was exactly a decade later. They differ in opinions though, because KG believes firmly that he doesn't think players from 20 to 30 years ago could play in today's NBA. His main quibble was with the defense, stating, 20 years ago guys used to use their hands to control players. Now you can't use your hands. Defensive players have to take angles away and stuff like that. That makes defense damn near impossible. Now, despite him giving credit to the players of today, I don't think KG would necessarily enjoy playing in it himself. Sure, it's great for the neutral to watch, but as a player, our bet is he misses the old rough and tumble of the game that existed when he was coming up. Shaq doesn't seem to be too thrilled with today's game either. The 7'1" legend was a Finals MVP 3 times and an NBA champion with 2 different teams, taking 3 titles with the Lakers and 1 with the Miami Heat. So Shaq really did make the difference for his side, playing a very different game compared to today where centers are simply not considered as valuable. Shaq has an air of condescension when speaking of the development of the shooting era of today.
You got guys shooting threes. It's cute. It's not something I would do. And somebody asked me the other day, oh, Shaq couldn't play today. But you're not paying attention. I am playing today. My name is Greek Freak. Who was the first big guy to take it coast to coast? Oh, you don't remember? Check this play out.
O'Neal the rebound. Now the Magic with a final shot chance. O'Neal runs the floor. Takes it all the way.
I play just like Greek Freak. Take it off the glass, high percentage shots.
After the superb Michael Jordan documentary The Last Dance, Shaq stated that Jordan would average 45 points with ease. He's quoted as saying that he grew up watching the bad boy Pistons of the 80s, and therefore was a product of his environment and wanted to play like them. So when it comes to talking about today's game, there's no getting away from the fact that Shaq feels the game has gone soft. Right or wrong, he never shies away from saying how he feels. And on the Full Send podcast, he came out speaking on today's NBA as
very sensitive, very soft, very political, but, and I hate this term, but people say this is the era we live in. So I guess we have to accept it. One thing I will not accept is okay play being looked at as great play. I ain't letting that shit slide ever. I've been through the era of Mike, Charles, Malone, Stockton, all these great guys, so I know what greatness looks like. So, I said something about Donovan Mitchell one time, and who everybody is, start bashing me.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
But they're not listening to what I'm saying. What I'm saying is I played with Penny Hardaway, Kobe Bryant, D. Wade, LeBron James, Steve Nash, and if you ain't on that level, I don't know what great is.
Another legend of the game, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, weighed in with his thoughts on the modern era too. He came up in the 70s and 80s, taking 6 NBA championships, 2 Finals MVPs, 6 NBA Most Valuable Player awards, and had an unbelievable 19 NBA All-Star appearances, which is the most of any NBA player ever. So his opinion is worth listening to. His skyhook shot was revolutionary to basketball. At 7 foot 2 inches, his length and size made it impossible for defenders as he floated in one of the most popular shots in the NBA's history. Apparently, he would reach between 10 and 11 feet before releasing the ball close enough to the basket to make it an incredibly high percentage shot. This was part of a game in the 70s and 80s that was dominated by tall players. Kareem had just taken the torch from Wilt Chamberlain, who stood at 7 foot 1 and played through the 60s and 70s. The 90s were no different, as sizable athletic centers such as Patrick Ewing and Shaquille O'Neal dominated the floor, standing at 7 foot and 7 foot 1 respectively. Kareem spoke recently about his thoughts on how today's game is based more on the guards and pull-up jumpers.
Nowadays, they'll take 20 shots and a half. Will be 3-point shots. So by putting a premium on a low percentage shot, it's changed the nature of the game.
Yeah. You think that's for the worse, for the better, just different? I mean, do you enjoy watching it?
It's different. I don't enjoy watching it as much, but I think the fans like it, so it's going to remain part of the game.
Clearly, he was a bigger fan of the physicality and strategy of the previous 4 decades. When asked if Kareem could see a time when the league could swing back into the old style of play, he said this.
I think a player that can deliver in the paint would change people's minds again, because the closer you get to the basket, the higher your shooting percentage goes, and coaches are aware of that. But trends are what they are, and we'll just have to wait and see.
One of the most talked about changes in today's NBA is the use of analytics. And former Indiana Pacers legend and 5-time All-Star from the era of the 90s, Reggie Miller, believes they are overused. When speaking on player impact estimate on Open Court, Miller said,
That's being calculated.
Chaotic things that we may have ever talked about here on Open Court. Analytics are good in showing certain trends, maybe, where guys particularly getting most of their shots or where they're scoring from. Whatever happened to good old-fashioned scouting? There's no computer, there's no MIT geek that can tell me all that stuff. At looking at Shaq, how many touches, I don't need to see all that. I want a guy that I can trust on the ground at a game. I don't need a formula to know that.
And this was coming from a guy who statistically was excellent. A career field goal percentage as a shooting guard that sat at 47%, Reggie is no joke. He has served as a coach and analyst for the last 20 years and has always come across as a clear and fair commentator. His comments on analytics might be unpopular with most franchises who use them in order to evaluate their coaching, scouting, and indeed selection. But Reggie has a point. At what point do you recognize somebody's talent or potential just by looking at the player? You can't analyze a player's mentality in the clutch moments if you have yet to see them in that position. It's all about gut instinct watching them practice. In the very same conversation, 2-time NBA champion and 1990 Finals MVP, Isaiah Thomas, spoke on the danger of the NBA and how
the video game is driving the strategy of the NBA. Because the video game is the dunk shot, the free throw, and the 3-point line. In all game and all offenses right now, they mirror the video games. The mid-range game does not matter anymore.
Needless to say, Shaquille O'Neal and Charles Barkley were both in the same room, echoing both Thomas and Miller's concerns. It's clear that they're waiting for the moment a dominant physical presence takes the league back. And as Shaq said, they might have already begun to do that with this year's NBA Finals MVP, Giannis Antetokounmpo, a man ready to rewrite the history books and bring back the lane game Shaq and company dream of. What do you think of today's NBA compared to that of the past? Is it less exciting? And if so, which era was your favorite to watch?